3. Okay, we are recording. And we are going live. Hey everybody, it's Karen Kag and Shanley Tenike back again. And Shanley, when I first popped on here, I was like, okay, can you please explain what you're wearing, especially the shirt? I love the shirt.
Right. Okay. So today is I'm a member of NAPO, which is the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals, and I'm a member of the South Florida chapter. And so today was our holiday party. Hello to all my NAPO peeps. And it was an ugly Christmas party, but I've moved 29 times now. And so in the last move from Tucson to Tampa, I decided to go ahead and get rid of my ugly Christmas sweaters because guess what? There's more. I didn't need to bring those. So because of COVID, I hadn't had a chance to go ahead and find another one. So I went into my closet like a true organizer and decided to repurpose something that I already owned. And so I glanced at this and I decided because I'm in Tampa, my husband made this shirt when he was 12 years old, and it has hippopotami on it because I want a hippopotamus for Christmas. I thought it was perfect. So I put on my jingle bells and I put on my pigtails, and I'm channeling my inner 12-year-old today. And so that's what you got, me with my hippopotami.
It's a really important part of doing this because when I think about organizing, I'm just like, oh, but you got to bring it. You got to bring your own fun, you know?
Absolutely. Right. And repurposing things that you already own. Why not? It's got a good story to it. Makes everybody smile. We're good to go.
Makes me smile. Nothing makes me smile like a green hippopotamus. Let me tell you. Okay. So, I want to say before we jump in and get started, today we're doing books and paper. And if you are just catching us now or you're catching it on the replay, please go in and type some questions. If you're watching live, type your questions in. And if I can't see them because I'm jumping back and forth between Zoom and Facebook Live, we will immediately after this broadcast, we will jump in there and answer your questions. Also, check inside the event. So click the event, click discussion, look in there, and we have some articles about one of my favorites is from the New York Times called The Heaviness of Clutter. It's a really good article. Several articles. Also, we have a list of essential oils that are really good at different stages of the organizing process. So, So Shanley, I'm ready to get going.
Yay. And we talked about a lot about those last time. And so we're not going to talk about them again this time to try and keep it brief because we know people are on a timeline. So we're going to try and stick to 20 minutes today. So Karen, I'm going to share screen. That was a Karen screen.
Yeah. Or you can say, so, Sharon, I'm going to carry the screen. All right.
That's right. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to do my little presentation. And so that way you can see it. And we're going to do, so this is me and back in the day. Can you see that, Karen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay,
we're good.
So that's me. That's the associations I'm part of. And today we're going to remember to category. We're going to organize by category and not by location. And so we already talked about clothing. That was first, and how to make a rectangle for your clothes. And today we're going to talk about books. And so the idea behind books and paper, and we're lumping them together because these two categories are pretty similar. And the idea is the same as with clothing. You're going to create a pile with everything, books specifically. And, you have all these books on your bookshelves that have just been sitting there for years, and they literally have dust, sitting on the top of them. And that's okay. But the point of the KonMari method is that you want to consider why you're keeping things. It's not to make you get rid of things. Maria is not going to make you get rid of all of your books, and neither am I. That is not that's actually a myth. So a common myth about the KonMari method. And so the thing is I want you to think about that book. And if that book brings you joy, then you should keep it. But if you're just keeping it because it's been sitting there for a while and you might get to it, then you might want to consider why you're keeping it. So the idea here is, again, let's go back to your goals. If your goal is to move you forward and to become a new, better, different, version of yourself, is that book that's been sitting there collecting dust or whatever, moving you towards that goal. And so it's important for you to keep that goal in mind whenever you're evaluating these things. And so touching each of your books, and again, trying to have that spark, that joy check. And does it bring joy to your heart? Does it make you happy? And if so, then keep it. But if it's a book that you've been keeping, from high school or from college, and you're keeping it for reference purposes, if you have actually referenced it, then you should keep it. However, if it's one of those situations where you think you're going to reference it and it's been 10 or 20 or whatever number of years later and you haven't, you should consider getting rid of it, because you have to also consider that your space has a value to it, right? And so it's like paying per square footage, paying, $1 or whatever number per square footage of your space. It also takes up emotional and mental space for you to think about those things just sitting there and not actually contributing to your life. So if it was a person that you thought you were going to become by reading that book that was gifted to you, or that was in your book club and you just never got around to it, it's okay to let it go. You're not that person. And Marie has, she talks about in the Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up about the fact that things serve a purpose in your life. And Karen and I were talking about this before the show, that a book can serve a purpose, and the purpose is to show you that you're not actually interested in reading it. And that's why it's been sitting on your nightstand for however long, right? You can laugh, but it's totally true. Like, how many books do you have sitting on your nightstand right now? I don't, because I don't read that way at night. I watch my Kindle to calm down, or I read on my Kindle is what I do. But I have a lot of books on my Kindle that I just never gotten to. And so maybe the purpose there is to remind me that, yeah, at some point I was interested in that, but I'm really not anymore. Or somebody gave me that thing, and saying that it's going to be a good book, you should read it. Okay, but if you don't do it at that time, it's got an expiration date and you may be past it. So consider why you're keeping it. And if it's for, go ahead, question.
Oh yeah, like a Kindle. Should I delete things off of my Kindle, or is it okay to have a big pile?
Yeah, absolutely. So I watched a really great podcast the other day, or listened to a podcast the other day about digital clutter and how one of the common things that organizers will tell you to do is to take a picture of an item and then store that picture. But how many times have you actually gone through your pictures, your 2,000 or 5,000 pictures since you've done that? And so there's a really great study that was done recently that talks about the energy that's taken up by digital clutter and the number of emails. And I'll have to find the graphic, and it talks about like each email takes up this amount of energy units, and then that creates, then you end up having to have a server to store that email on, and then those servers there you go, all of those.
Can you see my email?
9,000 emails. That's a lot. And so that's a lot, but maybe you need them all. I don't know. Maybe that's not a lot for you. But the point is that even digital clutter takes up energy, and which then creates energy pollution in the world, right? And so that's still another form of pollution, and that's still another form of.
I have never thought of that.
That's right. And I hadn't either. And I was really impressed with the energy research that had gone into figuring out how much one email energy units are put out. And then that means that a collection of this many in a folder is this much. And then this many in a mailbox is this much. And this many on a server is this much. And think of all, those, you go by those factories all the time that are emitting pollution into the air. And that's what that's what servers do, mail servers. And, you put things in the cloud, it's still got to go somewhere. It's being stored somewhere. So while that's a great idea to take a picture, you really need to understand whether or not you're going to utilize that digital image as well, or does it again become clutter?
It does. So this stresses me out. Every time I look at my email, when I see 9,000, and it's overwhelming. Okay.
So then I would encourage you, just for 10 minutes every day, even 5 minutes every day, maybe it's while you're on the toilet, everybody's got their own little time. Just delete 5 emails. It doesn't have to be the oldest ones or the newest ones, just delete 5. And here's the thing, if you can get a grasp on the number of emails that you get in a day, That's your one in, one out situation, right? If you get 100 emails a day, you need to be eliminating 100 emails in a day to keep you at even. And if you want to actually make your 9,000 go down, you need to be eliminating more than 100 in a day, right? Okay. Or here's another great thing, unenrollme.com. Unenrollme.com. That allows you to look at your subscriptions, and it will actually unenroll you. You get to pick, they don't pick for you, but it will actually link to your, it's my Gmail account, I think. We'll list the information down below.
Okay.
But check it out, and it will help you go through your subscriptions, and it will help you eliminate emails. Okay. So with books and paper, the idea here is that clutter, just like with clothing. And so you want to, you want to create the pile, you want to touch them all, and then you want to joy check. And so you end up doing that with all of your books. And then the idea is to, if it makes your heart happy to go in color order, do that. If it makes it to go in alphabetical order, do that when you put them back on the shelf. You know, everybody's got their own method. I have different categories, but then within those categories, I sometimes do it by color, or I'll do it where it lifts up to the right so that it makes your heart happy with a lift. And that's sort of like the zing that Marie always does. And so reconstructing your bookshelves, you know, you can put some flat and stack them on top of each other, or you can do them this way, or you can do, if you like them this way, you can flip them around so that all you can see is the outside. Like if you're really going for a Pinterest home, then you would do it this way, and then they're all white. I find it a little hard to figure out which book is which that way. And then you're kind of going decorative, and in which case then you need to consider why you're keeping books, right? So, but to each their own. And I'm not saying that's a bad way of doing it. It's just a different way of doing it. So that's how you're going to go through all your books. Okay. And then you're going to put them all back. You can donate. There's lots and lots of places that will take your books. You can get Friends of the Library, and most places, senior citizen centers will take them because they're all just sitting there with nothing to do. It's obviously better if they're large print, but that helps, you know, whatever. You can also take them to high schools because they use them as props in the theater department, or you can give them to students or to teachers, and they use them for crafts. They'll cut them apart and make crafts out of them. You know how you see all those books that the pages are folded in and they look like hearts and stuff, and you can make crafts out of them that way. So then moving along to paper, the idea behind paper is the quickest thing that you can make an immediate impact for is to consider your manuals, okay? How long have you been keeping your refrigerator manual? Have you ever referenced it? Ever? And if you have, great, but do you really still need it now? Is it the refrigerator you used to own 2 refrigerators ago, but you still kept the manual and got a new refrigerator instead also? And now you have that manual and the old manual. So check your manuals. Just go straight to your manuals pile or folder or wherever you keep them. And if you don't keep your manuals all in one place, this is the perfect time to do that. Mine are actually categorized. So I have kitchen appliances, and then I have outdoors, and then I have electronics. And I think I have one more segment, but that way it makes it easier for me. The other way to do it is electronically, alphabetically, but do you actually remember the manufacturer's name of your, you know, whatever, as you're looking through your manuals? No, it's easier for me to just go to the electronics manual and then look through them that way. So that just start with manuals and make a huge impact there. Another thing is tax returns. And I am not a CPA, and I'm not giving you advice. I want you to go to the irs.gov webpage and look at what their guidelines are for keeping tax returns, both digitally and physically. I will tell you that if you get audited and you have tax returns that are older than the years suggested, the amount of time suggested, you are legally required to produce all of those. Really? So that may be a good indicator or a good motivator to help you get rid of old tax returns that you really don't need to be keeping anymore for audit purposes. So those are 2 areas that you can make a pretty huge impact, because tax returns can be pretty big depending on how much, you know, business you got going on there. So tax returns, manuals, and then the third thing is usually like reference materials. Like if you went to an event like this one, like I have this little notebook, this little book. It's, you know, this is not really a book, but it is not really, you know, it's not really just a paper. It's not a pile of papers, but it is something that I got from my KonMari class, but it's a reference material for me. And I actually do use this. Okay. But after the holiday happens, this holiday catalog for Young Living is gonna get recycled because I won't need it anymore. The products are still available online, and I won't have a purpose for it. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. So that's another, and magazine subscriptions. So those kinds of piles of paper that kind of fall in between both paper and books, and that's why we're doing both together today. What questions do you have for me, my dear?
Just my desk is a disaster. And I tend to just, well, maybe part of it is I don't want to throw things away. So I'm like, oh, I might need it. Or
Yeah.
if I printed too many of something, I save the paper, turn it over and use it for like scratch paper. But so I just have paper everywhere.
Okay. So in that case, if you have scratch paper, that's great, but put it all in one place. Have a scratch paper pile instead of having it everywhere on your desk.
Scratch
And that's
paper
cool.
desk.
That's super cool, but just reusing it is fantastic. And so here's another little tip. When I pick up business cards and stuff like this, there's an app called CamCard, CamCard, CamCard. And what it will allow you to do is to scan this card into your phone. So then you can just recycle this or not even take it. So when I meet business people, sometimes we'll just snap pictures of each other's cards, and then it integrates into your contacts. So mine go to my my Gmail account, which is where I keep all of my contact cards. And that way you don't have to have these cards sitting around. But what I'll do occasionally is I'll find that I have a pile of them sitting there. I'll just sit there and snap with my Cam card, and then I'll recycle them all. So that's a great way for you to eliminate even just bringing things into your home, because just because somebody hands you something does not mean you need to take it, right? So I was at the doctor's office yesterday, and she said, I'm going to go ahead and print out these lab results for you. And I said, that's okay. I have them electronically. I'm a professional organizer, and I actually try to encourage people not to take things that they don't need or want or can access in another way. She's like it was super stressing her out. Like I could tell. And I was like, go ahead and just print them. She's like, okay. I just want to make sure you have them. And I'm like, it's okay. Go ahead and print them out. And she's like, you could scan them and then you could get rid of them. And like, I can do that. You're right. So I took them and they went immediately into the shredder because I don't need them, because I know that I have access to them electronically. It's also smart in that situation to put them in your medical file folder, your physical folder for medical information, because I moved, I now have to establish care with all of my new doctors. And so it would have been easier for me to be able to bring that folder to my doctor and say, here's my blood results for the last 15 years in Tucson. I do not have a B12 deficiency, even though it looks like I do. I don't. I always test at that level, that kind of a thing. So if you want to keep your papers like that, that's for historical purposes. Medical files are one of the things I do actually encourage you to have, but then you need to actively use it. Take it to your doctor's office when you're actually going to the doctor so that you have all of those test results. So, okay, and desks are another very common place for people to ask questions about. And so if you're going to do that, if the desk is a goal, start on the left side and just work your way all the way over to the other side of the desk, or right to left, it doesn't matter, or go top to bottom, it doesn't matter. But just start with a pile. I have 3 piles in my office right now, and I'll tell you, the mental amount of energy that I spend ignoring those piles, it would be way easier for me just to take one piece of paper every day and deal with it. And I would have dealt with all 3 of those piles months ago.
Wow. That's a good point.
One thing a day. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times we feel stressed out and wait, do we need to look at these slides anymore? It's like, I want to see your face.
Oh, sorry. I keep doing it. Okay. So here we'll look at paper real quick. You can reference whether or not you can get this online. When was the last time you referenced this? Could you Google the information? Mm-hmm. And if you had to reference, if you got rid of it and you had to access it again, how much effort would that take? So these are sort of just key questions you can ask yourself when you're considering whether or not you should keep paperwork. Okay. So I'm just going to get rid of that. And I'm sorry.
I like to see your face.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say that a lot of times I'm feeling stressed and I'm feeling anxious, and I'm not really, I can't really put my finger on why. And what you just said, I think is why. I don't think that I really consider how did you put it? How much mental energy
it takes up. Yeah.
Yeah. To not look at that or to not think about that or,
yeah. And so that's part of what happens with people who have hoarding tendencies is that you ask them to draw a picture of their room, and they will actually draw it smaller than it physically is because you ignore clutter, right? You literally ignore it. So at some point you just stop seeing it, but you know that it's there and it's weighing on you mentally. So that's decision fatigue. It actually creates decision fatigue for you because you know it's there and you have to mentally ignore it.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. So you're creating effort and energy for your brain to think about it. So it's like stickers. When you get a container, rip the sticker off because your brain has to think about ignoring that sticker every single time you look at it.
Yeah. I saw that piece of advice in my
Redfin article. Yay.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I'm published.
She's published. And what, I hadn't thought about that, but it's not just one tiny little, I need to do that. Yeah. It's all the little things that add up and just make you feel like I'm overwhelmed. Why? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's the guilt typically that's associated with that decision fatigue or those, what do they say? I was listening to that podcast this morning, and what does she say? Deferred decisions and delayed. There's a great way of putting it. I'll write it down. But not making a decision now is basically just a deferred decision. You're gonna have to make that decision at some point. So make it now so that you don't have to make it later, and you don't have to keep feeling guilty about not making that decision now.
And it's not even just the guilt; it's also shame, because then I start to feel like.
Yes.
Feel like a sense of shame of like, how can I not?
Yeah.
Because I'm an empty nester. How can I feel overwhelmed? I mean,
yeah. And then that goes back
like there's something wrong with me.
And that goes back to the shoulds. You shouldn't should on yourself. Let's not should on ourselves. We could take care of that, but you're choosing to prioritize other things right now. And that's okay too. You will do it when you're ready. When it gets to the point where that pile is so annoying to you, you will start taking care of it. And an easy way to do it is to just do one thing. Yeah. Just pick up one thing.
Okay, that's really good advice. And just being mindful too. That's good.
Yes.
Okay. So this week we're going to work on our paper and our books. Wow. And so what are we going to do next week?
Kimono. And that's the biggest category because that's so there's 5 categories. We've got clothing, books, paper, kimono, and sentimental. So as you can imagine, this is everything that's not one of these other categories. And so that's your garage, your attic, your linens, your kitchen, your pantry, your everything that is not considered books, clothes, paper, or sentimental. And so that's why you push all the sentimental stuff to the end, because that's the hardest category, because that's why it's at the end. And this is the biggest category because it's everything else.
I was thinking empty essential oil bottles.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, what category does that go on? Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll show you my container of those next week.
Okay. Shanley, thank you so much. This has been great. I know it's helping so many people. And everybody, remember to post your questions in there and we will run and look at them right now.
That's right.
So love you guys.
Bye-bye. See you later.